From lollies to liquor, from phones to French fries, when we think of our favorite goods, we also think of their logo. Some are very simple and effective. Others are a little smarter with hidden messages buried inside them. Some have been around for generations. Every famous logo has a story behind it. The logos on this list all have their own really interesting stories to tell. Top 10 true stories you won't believe about famous logos. Number 10. Chupa Chups. Hands up, who likes Chupa Chups? Of course, we all do. They're a worldwide sensation. The gold standard in lollipops since 1958. This sweet on a stick was invented by Spanish candyman Anne and Rich Burnett, but they were not as immediately popular as you might think. Burnett thought the problem might be with the branding and complained about it to his friend over coffee one day in 1969. Luckily for Rich, this particular friend was Salvador Dali. Yes, the world-famous surrealist artist. He of the big twirly mustache and droopy clocks. Over the next hour, Dali designed a new logo for his friend on some newspapers lying around the cafe. He settled on the Daisy logo. We know today, he thought a flower would stand out and appeal to kids. Dali's masterstroke was that the logo would be on the top of the lollipop rather than on the side, so it could be seen from any angle. Number 9. The Captain Morgan Pirate. The Captain Morgan Pirate is one of the best-known corporate mascots in the world. His likeness has graced bottles of rum since the 50s and inspired this NFL celebration, landing the captain in hot water. What you may not know is that there was a real Captain Morgan, and he wasn't just an image, he walked the walk. Captain Henry Morgan was a Welsh privateer based in the Caribbean. He was a hero in the 15th century for his daring attacks on Spanish lands and shipping. He was also well known for being a notorious drinker and party animal, a regular fixture in the bars of Jamaica before he drank himself to death. Just the man to sit upon the labels of the Caribbean's favorite bottles. The Captain Morgan on the 1950s, bottles were relatively reserved. But over the years, the captain was given a sword, facial hair, and a fiendish look in his eyes, until he became the layering pirate we know today. Enjoy, but try not to end up like the real Captain Morgan. Number 8. McDonald's. There are many myths and legends associated with McDonald's golden arches. One of the most recognizable logos in the world. Is it inspired by the letter M? Is it made from French fries, or as brand consultant Louis Cheskin maintained in the 1960s? Is it a pair of motherly breasts? They're all wrong, I'm afraid. The original McDonald's restaurants all had large golden arches incorporated into their buildings. The arches made the restaurants stand out on the highway and helped to divert rain away from customers queuing for their food. The logo that went on to conquer the world was based on those arches. Incidentally, Sedona in Arizona houses the only McDonald's in the world where the arches aren't golden. The powers that be in Sedona thought the standard yellow arches would spoil their picturesque desert views. They wouldn't let McDonald's use their normal signage. They were allowed, however, to paint their arches blue. Number 7. Nike. These days, graphic designers spend weeks creating a logo. They spend their blue sky thinking and testing their ideas on focus groups. They come up with long and pompous justifications of what their ideas mean, and of course, they charge a fortune. All that fuss when it's possible to create one of the most iconic logos ever designed in 17.5 hours for only $35. That's just what happened with Nike and what became known as the swoosh. Nike founder Phil Knight worked as an assistant professor at Portland State University before he became a shoe dog. While he was there, he met Carolyn Davidson, a PSU studying graphic design. When Knight started Nike in 1971, he asked Davidson if she could design a stripe to go on the side of the shoe. Davidson quickly sketched out the swoosh, symbolizing speed and flowing movement. Davidson charged Knight $35, 17.5 hours at $2 an hour. Yes, that's all. Nike went on to become the biggest shoe brand that ever existed. Carolyn Davidson remained a graphic design. In 1983, she was honored by Nike with a surprise party and, more importantly, shares in Nike that made her considerably richer. Good things come to those who wait. Number 6. The MGM Live. The movie maker, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, is one of the world's favorite corporate logos. Firstly, because it tells you that adverts have finished and the movie is finally starting. Secondly, because it has a massive roaring lion in it. MGM's designer Howard Detz chose a lion for a mascot as a tribute to his university, Columbia, and their sports team, the Lions. Over the years, the logo has been changed in various ways, and sometimes the lions haven't been around for the rare recording, if you catch my meaning. It's the circle of life. There have been 5 MGM lions since the logo was devised in 1917. The original line was called Slats. He toured the country with his trainer, Volney Pfeiffer, to promote MGM's films. They clearly became close. When Slats died in 1936, Pfeiffer had the body sent to his ranch, marrying him beneath a giant marble slab and a pine tree to hold down the lion's spirit. The current MGM lion, Leo, has been roaring since 1957. He has also starred in several Tarzan movies. Number 5. Apple. If you're not watching this video on a little green bug droid device, you're probably watching it on an Apple screen. That famous logo, the apple with a bite taken out of it, is simple, effective, as familiar as your own face. But what you may not know is that it's not the original Apple logo. The old Apple logo was probably the opposite of simple and effective. It was an extremely detailed picture of Isaac Newton sitting under an apple tree with the motto Newton, a mind forever voyaging through strange seas of thought alone underneath. Doesn't exactly trip off the tongue now, does it? This logo lasted a year until Steve Jobs asked designer Rob Janoff to come up with something a bit better. Janoff came up with the iconic Apple design, and the rest is history. There are quite a few urban myths around Apple in their logo. For example, some say it's a tribute to master codebreaker Alan Turing, who died eating a poisoned apple. According to Jobs, he called his company Apple because he just thought it sounded nice. He was eating a lot of fruit at the time. The bite that is removed from the apple, that's to stop it from being mistaken for a cherry. Number 4. The Bacardi Bats. Back to rum and the most famous rum brand in the world, Bacardi. If you've ever wondered why Bacardi bottles were adorned with bats, our story begins in 1862 in Cuba. Bacardi was first concocted in Cuba by Facundo Bacardi. While other rums at the time were rough and fiery, Facundo's was smooth and light. He purchased a distillery in Santiago de Cuba and set to work. While he was setting up the distillery, Facundo discovered a colony of bats nesting in the eaves of the roof. In Cuba, bats are considered good luck, so his wife, Amalia, suggested they use the bat as the symbol of Bacardi rum. It was a shrewd move. Many people in 19th century Cuba were illiterate, so they'd ask for the bat rum instead of reading the word Bacardi on the bottle. The Bacardi family say the bat has given them luck over the years, helping them survive setbacks such as prohibition in the US and exile from Cuba in the 1960s. Number 3. Jägermeister. Staying with the hard stuff, it's the favorite green tipple of après-skiers everywhere, Jägermeister. On every Jägermeister bottle, you'll see a crucifix and a stag's head, and you may be asking yourself, what's that got to do with Jäger bombs? Well, it starts in 727 AD with a hunter named Hubert. Hubert was a wild, bloodthirsty man, rampaging around the forest, killing everything he saw. He had no morals and cared little for being a Christian. One Sunday, he decided not to go to church and went out hunting, where he was confronted by a large white deer carrying an illuminated crucifix. Hubert then heard the voice of God telling him to turn to God or risk falling into the abyss of hell. Luckily, Hubert saw this as a sign to change his ways. From then on, he devoted himself to good works. He eventually became Street Hubert, the patron saint of hunters. That is what inspired the Jägermeister brand. Jägermeister means master hunter, you see. Number 2. Android. Officially, the little green man who greets you when you open your Android device doesn't have a name. Some of the team at Google call him Bug Droid, as he's always chasing down bugs. Those crazy computer guys. He was reportedly designed in 5 minutes by Google marketer Irina Block. It was the first thing IR ever designed and can now be seen on hundreds of millions of devices world. Not bad. Irina said she was inspired by the men and women signs on airport toilets. However, some believe she received inspiration from elsewhere. Retro gaming fans may have played the game Gauntlet, the third encounter on the Atari Lynx. You can choose what character to play as, such as a pirate or a nerd. However, you can also play with a character who goes by the name of Android, who looks like, well, the android. Android. Did Google design a world-famous logo inspired by airport toilets? Or did they steal it from an early 90s Atari game? What do you think? Number 1. Walt Disney's signature. When people ask you for your signature, it's because your signature is yours and yours alone. That's how they know it's you. When people ask Walt Disney for his signature, they were invariably confused. That's because Walt Disney's signature, which has grace, pretty much everything Disney has ever produced, and became instantly recognizable as Disney's corporate logo, is not really Walt Disney's signature. It was done by one of his employees, possibly Hank Porter, who did this one. Walt received so much fan mail that he could never answer it all. He authorized his secretaries to reply and to sign his name using this stylized signature. Walt's real signature looked like this. Around 20 years after Disney's death in 1966, an evolved version of the fake signature began to be used in Disney's corporate logo. Now you can see it everywhere, emblazoned across films, TV channels, and theme parks. It's one of the most iconic logos in the world, but no one remembers Hank Porter. We visit Disney World, not Porter World. Which story did you find the most interesting? Do you know how other famous logos came? Leave a comment below to let me know. Thanks for watching.